father say to them, I'm proud of you. That's all they wanted. They yearned for it their whole life. And you would think that's something so small, but it's not. Always remember, it's not how big or small something is. It's what meaning we assign to it. It's the appraisals we make. And oftentimes, we assign big meanings to seemingly little things. And that has a huge impact on our emotional life. And sometimes you're like, man, why am I struggling so much with this? We feel silly and embarrassed. Like, why am I so anxious about this? Maybe it's an event. Maybe we have to go to something, whatever it might be. Well, probably because we're assigning a much bigger meaning to it than we realize. You see? And so, but for some of us, I mean, wanting to know from a parent that they're proud of us is kind of important. But sometimes as parents, we can get so self-absorbed, or maybe we didn't receive that, so we can't really, it's hard to give to our kids what we didn't receive ourselves. But that's one of our callings as parents, and it's never too late. So, no matter how old we are. So if anyone's like, I have some work to do, it's not too late. So if we have a 50-year-old kid, who, maybe I didn't say something enough to them. You could make their day by doing it now. This is the time of year where the human heart is the most ripe and receptive to reaching out in peace and love and reconciliation. There's a window of time. I mean, we can do it throughout the year, but the nativity season is when our hearts are the most tender. And it deepens and intensifies as we get closer to the feast of nativity, right? And so if anyone, I realize as I share these things, there's two sides to it. And it's much easier to hear these things and be on the victim side of it. Oh, well, that was me. I didn't get that. But what if some of us are sitting here and I was the one that did that? I'm a parent. Both of my kids are in college at the same time. And, my fear is that one day I'll look back and I'll be like, I thought I was the perfect parent. But then, one day my daughter says something that indicates I whiffed somewhere. It's inevitable, probably for all of us. And what am I going to do about that? And so we should never feel saddled with hopelessness. That's it. That's just great. So now I learned all this stuff, but I wasn't the victim. I was the one that did it. It's not too late. We can still act. And even if the person has departed, there's still things we can do. We'll save that for the end. Our relationship with the departed is dynamic. It hasn't ended. The wrinkles can still be ironed out. That's what our faith teaches us. But assuming the person is alive, that's our nativity homework then. So upon hearing some of these scenarios, if you were like, yeah, I did that. Our marital interactions weren't always ideal. We fought in front of the kids, and even though they've never said anything, they had to have been affected by it. So what's stopping me from now reaching out this nativity season and just saying, and hey, can I talk to you? I just want to say I'm sorry. And to ask your forgiveness for all that stuff that went on. It can be, you will create a memory in them that they will never forget. Or maybe it's our spouse. We just, sometimes in marriage it's a temptation to resign ourselves to, the kids are raised, they're out of the house, and this is just how it's going to be with us. This is as good as it gets, and we tolerate each other. How tragic. It doesn't have to, that's a terrible tragedy. There has to be a second birth to a marriage, no matter what the stage of life. And maybe we can add this to our nativity homework. How have I been negligent as a spouse? If God forbid, and sometimes, when we talk about grief and loss, this is something I do in my own life, and this is optional whether you want to do this. Sometimes to make sure I'm behaving as a husband, I'll say to myself, like, God forbid something happened to my wife. I'll ask myself, I'll say, or to my mom even, or anybody in my life, my sister, would I be at peace? Or would I have regrets? And that often will highlight and shine a spotlight on areas of my life that I've been deficient in, that I know are not ideal. Maybe a lack of response towards something, perhaps an over-response towards something. Perhaps it's a nitpicking of something. And I said, if that happened, I would not be at peace and I would have regrets. That means I have to act. See, that follows up with action. And reaching out to that person. Maybe it's a phone call, text message, which is probably not ideal, but it's better than nothing. Hey, I just want you to know this. And